Together we question.
Together we achieve.
Together we create.
Together we overcome.
And together we inspire. Welcome to the Empower You podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Redbrick, the backbone of disruptive digital companies.
Yeah. How's your day been, Marco?
It's good. Yeah. It's been a quiet week last week, and this week is starting to kind of, people are, I think, realizing that September is around the corner.
Vacations are ending.
Slowly. Yeah, slowly. So, unfortunately, my vacations have ended, and so I'm eagerly awaiting a third child. So that's why I didn't put my phone to airplane, just because we're a couple weeks away. So I'm the only person that is allowed to text me through Do Not Disturb is my wife. So
absolutely, that's totally fair. And congratulations, by
congrats.
the way.
Thank you.
It's so exciting. Do you know if it's a boy or girl?
We don't. No, it was a surprise. We have two boys, and it's a surprise. But my wife's been not having a great pregnancy, and so we had ultrasound not last week, the week before, and she swears she saw a little penis. So we think it's, and she's like super detail oriented, so I'm thinking she's probably right.
That's awesome. I love that. She has a feeling too, right?
Yeah. So there might be 3 boys. So.
Oh wow, 3 boys.
Geez.
Hands full, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Mahum, what about you? How was your day today?
My day's been pretty busy as well. Just ramping down from all the time off and vacations and preparing for September. The co-op term is ending, so we're just wrapping up loose ends and preparing for a new co-op term.
Awesome.
Is September a pretty big transition period for you guys? Like, I know the summer is ending, but is there more going on like in your company at that point?
I find usually with the co-op terms ending and starting, it's a new team you have to onboard, and with the term ending, like tying all the loose ends and offboarding and stuff like that. So that's definitely a big transition.
Yeah, fair enough. How long does an onboarding process take?
For our project, since it's pretty new, it's much smaller. I would say like within the first week we're onboarded.
That's pretty fast. That's a
Yeah.
really fast crash course. Jeez.
Absolutely. So what I want to ask you today is, you are the CMO of Redbrick, right? And you are the project manager. Is that correct? One of the teams?
I'm the lead software developer.
Lead software
I'm
developer.
also managing the project.
Awesome. Amazing. So I want to get into, what is your roles and what is Redbrick for those that don't know?
Well, I can take that.
Yeah.
I'm the CMO, so the Chief Marketing Officer at Redbrick. Redbrick celebrated 10 years last year, so 11 years this year. So pretty old from a tech company, from startup to where we are. And Redbrick is a portfolio of companies largely focused on software that supports the digital entrepreneur. So Redbrick itself is our executive team is at Redbrick. We have our shared service team, which is design, creative, marketing as well, alongside finance and HR. And then that supports our portfolio of companies. And so Redbrick has 4 portfolio companies, Rebase, which is one of our original companies that we founded. Shift, which is a company that we also started up, and it's essentially a productivity-esque type of browser. And we purchased 2 companies. One was Lead Pages in 2020, right before kind of the pandemic started. And that's a team based in Minneapolis. And we acquired another company in December of 2021, so just recently, called Delivera. And it's an email service provider, so an email marketing platform, which is software, and that's based in Minneapolis as well. So,
wow. How did you get into that? Can I ask? Like, how did you decide to do all of this, or did it just kind of come up as you were growing in your professional career?
Yeah, it's a bit of a longer story. Redbrick was co-founded by 2 individuals, one being Tobin Sowden, who's the CEO of Redbrick, and my business partner. And so Tobin founded it in 2011 or 2012. And one of the founders, I think, as it kind of grew and scaled, and what Redbrick was originally doing was basically doing marketing services for other software developers. Became really good at promoting other people's software from a marketing perspective. And I think one of the other founders, I don't fully know, but I think the company grew, it scaled really, really quickly, and he decided that he wanted to sell his part of the business. And so Tobin acquired the full assets of Redbrick in 2014, I believe. 2014 or 2015. And at the same time, I was part of the Redbrick organization because I had a digital coupon business. And the days of kind of the Groupon days, I had finished university. I was working for another company, and then I stopped. And so I kind of thinking, what the heck am I going to do? And I jumped into technology and I jumped into this marketing coupon business. Well, Tobin had a competitor to the company that I had. And so I reached out to Tobin and said, hey, I want to buy your company. No money, no intention to buy his company.
Oh my God.
But that ended up leading into a coffee meeting. And that ended up leading into Tobin's company acquiring all the assets of my company. And so we kind of built a relationship. We had a kind of a transaction. I ended up doing some consulting for the company that he owned at the time. And then I kind of went separate ways. And then we reconnected, and I joined Redbrick about 10 years ago now, 10 years ago in December. And during that kind of transition between the two co-founders and what was going to happen with Redbrick, Tobin and I co-founded Assembly, which is a publishing company that we just recently sold in March of this year. And so during that process, we kept both of the businesses running. We had Redbrick, we had Assembly, we actually had offices like 5 minutes away from each other, and we kind of go running between the two of them. And in 2017, we decided just to kind of amalgamate the whole company because it made no sense to have Assembly in one office, Redbrick in the other. Tobin and I spreading our time between the two. Why don't we just put it all under Redbrick? Mm-hmm. And so we ended up doing that in 2017, and kind of along the way, we started deciding to have this more formal structure that Redbrick is today. And acquisitions were kind of an idea that we had, and so Lead Pages was our first, and Deliverr being our second, and kind of our hope is to kind of continue that path forward kind of over the next couple of years as well. So
that's amazing. And it sounds like some of the acquisitions in your portfolio, they kind of integrate, or do they work together pretty well, would you say?
They can work together, but we try to not have them be dependent, or we didn't acquire Deliverr with the idea that it has to work with Lead Pages in order for it to be a business. Deliverr is a standalone business. It's an excellent business, and it's by itself. Are we working on ideas to get Lead Pages and Deliverr to work together better and be more seamless and be a better tool? Yeah, absolutely. But we want them to be independent. And if there's ways that they can collaborate, things like how we market them, we share that ideas between the different companies. We will, resources. And so all the ideation, we're super open between all the companies, how we can work together. We have a huge email list at Lead Pages. We'll promote Deliverr and kind of vice versa. So we'll do all those kind of things, but we want to keep the companies independent of each other. Not to say that they might not form some sort of collaboration or unique value prop for either one of their customer bases, but we solely buy them with the intention of them being ran by themselves.
And I guess that makes sense in an intuitive way where they have to all stand on their own and be valuable to the portfolio, of course, and be functioning companies. That totally makes sense. Do you find that the marketing process and scalability process is well translated between the different companies that you acquire?
They vary across. With Lead Pages, for instance, the first thing that we ended up doing when we acquired it, we're sitting on the plane, and we basically said we're firing our agencies and we're bringing marketing back in-house. And so luckily, we ended up having two people that we had worked with in the past that we ended up hiring. And so we hired them. They're based in Victoria, and they became part of the marketing team at Lead Pages. And so similar to Deliverr, we've been kind of doing the same thing. And so Deliverr is a bit of a different customer base. So you have to kind of respect that. Same as with Shift at his read base. But I think the big thing that ties all of them together is we really excel at performance and paid marketing. And and that runs through kind of all of our companies. Is we obviously optimize for SEO, we optimize for all the organic channels, we do podcasts, we do webinars, we do all the kind of traditional marketing channels as well. But if one thing were consistent, it would be that most of our companies excel at performance or paid marketing. And we do that typically as kind of a lever when we acquire a company.
And just for the listeners that might be paying attention, like listening right now, how would you describe paid marketing versus the alternative, besides the obvious?
Yeah, so if you look at into Google stock and read where they make all their money, the majority of it's advertising and paid based. And so what we've always noticed over the last 10 or so years is there's always fluctuations with Google or Facebook or whatever the marketing platforms are. And most of the disruption has typically happened from a free perspective. So if you go back to like Facebook and you look at what's happened with Facebook's algorithm, it's pretty much favored paid and is pretty much disfavored anybody that's relying fully on Facebook to give them free traffic. So we've always been of the mindset that Facebook and Google, they're advertising-based businesses. That's where they make all their money. Rather than try to acquire our eyeballs for free, and it's not always free too, because you have to do a lot of stuff to get, free eyeballs. We always like to pay, and that's just been our specialty. So it's the same way and the same strategy that you might be doing. It's content-based. It's, you have to build all the different assets, all your creatives. But we just find it's been much more consistent to be paying for those eyeballs versus trying to do it in an organic or a social type of way. And it's been more consistent than I would say over this kind of 10 years at looking at the kind of the marketing challenge that a lot of people have faced.
There's so much going on in one company that it's just, I can't wrap my head around it. How do you manage all of this?
Or I say both of you, actually.
Right?
I was
going to ask, Mahum, how do you play into this, and what is your role within the company, and how do you manage? I know you work specifically with a team here at Inspire. Can you tell us all about that?
So currently I'm working as a lead software developer for a brand new project that we're working on, and we're calling it Digital Scope. But I actually have a little bit of a longer story with Redbrick as well. I did my very first co-op in the engineering program at Redbrick 5 years ago.
Wonderful.
Which was 2018, right after Assembly and Redbrick kind of merged together. And I did my first co-op in the Shift team, and it was such a great experience. After that, I always stayed in contact with everyone because I was like, I need to be back in this company. I love the people. I love the work they're doing. I love the culture, and I just love the work ethic of everyone. So in December, I was talking to Dana about just looking for part-time work for the winter semester. And she connected me with Marco and Tobin again. And they had a great idea, and they needed someone to do a little bit of research. I was like, oh, that's perfect. I know them. They know me. So I got started with some of the research work for Digital Scope. And by the time April rolled around, the Inspire program had kind of taken some shape, and we were hiring. So I was like, it'd be great if we had a team too. And it turns out we did get one full team for from the Inspire program. And then all summer, we've been working with the Inspire Garage team members and bringing our ideas to life and building on the research that I'd done before and kind of creating something tangible out of it. And that's our product, Digital Scope. I can go a little bit in detail about what that is. So we started.
Yes.
So we started with the big question of what is the carbon impact of the internet or websites and web browsing? And that's kind of a little niche that's always missed when you're calculating your carbon impact. There's tons of calculators out there. UN has a great calculator for calculating the carbon impact of your lifestyle, but all of them kind of miss the internet aspect. Yeah. And in our own lives, we kind of just don't think of internet as something tangible, or just it's in the cloud, doesn't really matter. But we got started into looking at it, and it turns out there is a huge carbon impact of the internet because it's built on physical infrastructure. So the initial research I did for a few months was just to see how we can get started in calculating the work that's already been done in the field, what algorithms are out there. And we kind of figured out how we wanted to approach that problem and what our solution was. And that's where the Inspire team came in. We built a web app that you give it a website and it can kind of calculate the carbon impact per visit and also an average amount for you. And then actually I'll pass it on to Marco to talk a bit more about the business aspect of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it comes to essentially most of all the companies right now that are, if you hear about net zero goals, 2030, 2040, 2050 being quite a common one, you'll hear scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. Scope 1 and 2, if you are required to submit your emissions, your greenhouse gas emissions, if you're a public company or you're gas company, you do, and there's processes and everything. That's not a voluntary market, but they don't need to do scope 3. Scope 3 tends to be your largest emitter, as in like 80-90% of most of your emissions come from scope 3. And so if you think about, and it's when we thought about this idea, actually goes back to Shift and the co-op that Mahum worked on. It's a browser. Browsers tend to be pretty heavy from a digital perspective. They're big, they're slow, and they can slow down your computer. So it's kind of noticeable. A little bit less so from like a website. And we said, I wonder if we could do anything around maybe carbon removal against our user base that is using Shift. And that was kind of where the idea for Digital Scope came from. And so for us as being a tech company, and we had a publishing company as well, we have a lot of eyeballs. And if we thought about our infrastructure, if we said Redbrick wants to be net zero by 2030, what does that look like? Well, scope 1 will be kind of our office, maybe our commuting, and then the rest of it's scope 3, our servers, and then all of our customers are using digital assets that we own. And so what we wanted to do is, how can we help companies, and not just technology companies? There are companies that have big impact when it comes to digital, but they're not a technology company per se. How do we count all that? How do we understand all the different users, customers, site visitors, page views, video assets, all these things that are happening on a website, and count that in our total emissions? And so that's the business side. And so, for instance, Redbrick right now, we just are implementing a program called Sweep, which is a platform that allows us to first measure everything. What's the carbon impact of Redbrick and all of our portfolio companies? So this goes down to our travel, our offices, our commutes to work, and everything else, servers. And then we're going to start to implement Digital Scope so that we can also understand all of our site visitors, our customers using our products. We'll be able to grab all that data, all that information, understand what type of carbon impact does Redbrick have. I actually have no really idea. I couldn't even give you a number right now of what that might actually be. And so the first thing for us is measurement. And so that's what Digital Scope is about. It's about measurement to understand how much impact does our digital lives have, or our company's digital impact to their consumers have. And then what can you do about it? Is it about carbon removal? Is it about reduction? Is it about changing some of your servers, maybe going to solar power servers or renewable energy? That's kind of the business idea behind Digital Scope.
Wow. I got to say, like, a lot of people care about the environment and carbon impact, of course, but not everyone actually goes and does like a tech startup initiative for that. It sounds like that's really important to you, like, and your company. Is that pretty reflected in the culture within Redbrick?
Yeah, I would say that we are looking at all these things, and we incorporated Carbon Neutral Club, which allows us to offer this cool, unique program to our employees to say, what's your carbon impact as an individual? And then let us help you pick projects to help you either, what are the things you can do to reduce? And then how can we pick projects that are drawing down carbon as well? So carbon removal projects as well. So we implemented that. Obviously, we have bike to work programs. We're trying to be more responsible at our office. Luckily, our office, at least in Victoria, is it's a newer building. It's a pretty amazing building. So
it's beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
When we went there for that one trip, it was just gorgeous.
It is. Unfortunately, they did an amazing job in terms of how that operates. And luckily, even in BC, a lot of our energy in BC is through hydro. So we're doing a bit better than other areas as well. But yeah, I think we live in an amazing place. I think we've also felt what climate change is happening. Living in BC, I think it's impacted all of us in a tangible way. And so, for us, it's how do we connect those two and try to think about something that has impact.
Absolutely. And something I find very interesting is that you are both UVic alumni. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
I just graduated this year in April
Hey,
from the
congrats.
software engineering.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So this is like your first big project, I guess, after graduating then.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and it's awesome that you went back to someone that you had worked with so closely. I could see the passion from you, that you felt really happy about working with Redbrick, which is just awesome. You hear all those horror stories about getting a job after graduation, and it's nice to see that's the opposite.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it's also really cool that I get to work for a bigger cause that I'm really passionate about, but still use my software engineering skills, because you don't really think software engineering or like coding is something you can use towards ending climate change, but it kind of seems like I'm contributing towards it in some way, which is great. And yeah, it's really incredible that I get to do this right after graduating as well.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. What about you, Marco? When were you in UVic?
Oh, I don't want to age myself.
That's not what I meant.
Podcast, but many years ago. So, but I just love to stay in the city. I've traveled a lot and always loved coming back to Victoria. And then, years ago, tech was starting to kind of flourish here, and I felt it was kind of a perfect place to kind of plant myself and get involved in tech. And it was it was great that the two sides, and I focused on my school and business side, and there was this definite need, and I saw it where, at the time, business and tech and most of the tech startups were usually founded by computer science or computer engineering, which was fantastic, but they couldn't tell their story really, really well sometimes, or maybe some of the business side wasn't really taught. And it's changed a lot now, where you get people like Mahum that you can see already have more what their focus is on school, but they understand the business process a little bit more than back then. And so I felt like, this is a good opportunity for me to come in and bring in business alongside some of these technical leaders, and kind of help them in the the marketing and the sales and the business side as well.
And just to clarify, was that your field of study, was business at UVic then?
It was, but yeah.
All right, cool.
Did you envision yourself going towards the tech industry when you were a student?
No, not at all.
No? What I really want to personally know is, how did you make that transition? So you're a business student, and you said you didn't know that you wanted to go into tech. How did that all change? Because lots of students, they think they know what they want to go into, but they don't really know. So what advice would you give them?
So I think the advice that I'd give them is, don't put a lot of pressure on what that decision might be, and kind of go where your interest lies, and don't be shy just to take random opportunities. I wrote this article on basically the surface area of luck, and if you go back to this kind of premise, it's really just about doing a lot of different things, and not to say that it's all going to lead to awesome opportunities, but you just never know. When you look back at it many years ago, you're like, oh wow, that thing actually led me to this thing that led me to that thing. And so, to answer that question, I didn't know anything about tech. I'm of, again, I'm not going to age myself, but I'm of the age where I didn't have a cell phone until I was 21, and we obviously used computers. Of course, we did all that kind of thing. But after working for about 3 or 4 years after university, I went traveling for about 3 or 4 months, and I just wanted to get into business. And so that's kind of, looking at business ideas, and Groupon was growing like crazy. And I said, this is interesting. And it's kind of marketing, it's kind of coupons, it's technical. And I just jumped into it, and, never knew anything about building a website, never knew anything about the marketing angle of how you do everything digital. And I just did it. And I call it my personal masters, because I spent all my savings, and I lost it all. Like, I didn't make any money at all, and it was a huge hardship. But I just kind of jumped in. And did I know that would end up leading into a path and a career of tech after that? No idea. But it was just an opportunity, and I said, I'm gonna take it. And it could have went a different way too, but it still could have led me to tech. So I think people sometimes are so obsessed about this kind of perfect path of where they're going to go, and they often forget that the often path that where you take and how you meander across could be different, but it could lead into something that's even more rewarding. So that worries me a lot of times. People think about just this perfect path, and I think now it's harder because socially it's a lot easier to see perfect paths or what you consider perfect social paths and see this. It's all kind of portrayed, and I worry that people aren't sometimes doing the odd things sometimes.
That's quite the leap of faith. I've met some people who have been considering starting businesses for themselves, and they always have that moment almost where they're wondering, like, oh, should I really dedicate myself to this? Should I have a backup plan? What's your philosophy on backup plans on new startups?
I didn't have a backup plan. My backup plan was to buy Tobin's company.
Yeah.
No, I didn't have a backup plan. What I did know is that I spent 4 years, and I was lucky. I ran a student works painting company also through university, and so I did a co-op with the YEO, which is the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. Now it's called, I think, EO now, and it's a great organization, but it's kind of a bit of a boring co-op, and so I got an opportunity to run my own painting company. I hired 6 or 7 people and made some, major flaws. Didn't make any money in my first year, but I did my second year and had a great experience. And so I came out of university with luckily no debt and fortunate because of running this little business that turned into being a decent sized business during the summers. And when I decided, they offered me a job also after to help other franchise owners. And so I did that for 3 or 4 years. And so I had some savings. So I knew basically I had a runway, which was just myself, of about a year. And that's roughly kind of how long it lasted. It lasted about a year. There was a lot of challenges in the digital coupon space. You couldn't even get payment processing because of the issues that they're having in refunds and everything. So it was a pretty complex situation. But yeah, my backup plan was to do that, and it didn't work. So I tried to buy Tobin's company. That didn't work. He bought my assets. I got an agreement with Couvon, which is the company that he had, to do some consulting. And then the company that built my website, I ended up doing a year long. I said, I'll work for somebody, and I did that for a year, and then that was it. So not really a big backup plan. I just knew how long I had.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Is there any advice you could give to anyone who's considering starting a business? If you could go back and tell yourself any one thing, what might that be?
I'm not going to just say everybody just to do it. I think that if you're looking for that type of experience, then absolutely. For me, I wanted to do business. I've always enjoyed it. At a young age, I've done it. I've always kind of dabbled. So I kind of knew that was likely going to be my path. I didn't know what type of business, but I knew I was going to do it. So for me, I was more comfortable doing that jump. If somebody is, maybe they're technical, they're unsure, they have a good idea, and they want to do it, that one might be a little bit difficult. Maybe they don't have the experience. Maybe I at that point I was probably 24 or 25 at least, and I've been hustling since I was probably 13 years old, selling something or running some sort of little business. So I kind of had, and I worked at a grocery store from 14 to 17, and so I had a lot of work business experience. So I wasn't coming out of university, I have an idea, I have no runway, and I think I want to start up a business. But yeah, I would just say if you can do it, just do it, regardless if it's going to be a success or not. Because like I said, that failure of that digital coupon business was, I often say it was one of my greatest successes, because I ended up meeting Tobin, which led to this relationship at Redbrick, which led to the founding of Assembly, which allowed me to become a partner and owner at Redbrick as well. So who knows where it's going to lead? But if you want that experience, then just try. If you have the ability and the privilege and the ability to do that financially and everything as well. So
is that similar to the surface area of luck that you're talking about? How how does that metaphor work for you exactly? The surface area of luck.
Yeah, that's the idea. That you. So what we did was I'm a huge fan of the How I Built This podcast by Guy Raz, and he always asks the question: is it luck or is it hard work at the end of the episode? So we actually We listened to every single episode. We took out the answers and we tried to understand what's the commonalities. And I think what luck ends up bringing, luck always comes up. And the idea of the surface area of luck is, how do you define what's lucky and what's not lucky? And the idea of the surface area of luck is you have to put yourself often. Now there's a lot of circumstances and there's a lot of privilege here involved and how all this stuff works. But the premise of the surface area of luck is simply that you have to sometimes put yourself in positions to be lucky.
That makes sense. And that can be hard work for some people, but that's how you expose yourself to more opportunities.
It could be hard work. It could be saying yes to things. It could be saying no to things. An example that from how I built this podcast was the founder of Swell, the bottles. The water bottles that you see.
Yeah.
So she working. It was a long week. She got invited to this like little tiny event, and she was kind of like, "No, I don't want to go. I really don't want to go." And kind of last minute said, "Yes, I'm going to go." Sitting at the bar is Howard Schultz from Starbucks. And she's like, holy crap. And then, so she then says, I got to talk to him. I should talk to him because they should have Swell water bottles should be in every single Starbucks. Wow. And so she says, she just goes and talks to him. He says, here's my card. Call me back or set up a meeting, thinking I'm never going to get this meeting. Sure enough, the office says, yep, you got a meeting with Howard and it lasts an hour and a half and Swell bottles, are in Starbucks and kind of the rest is history. So if you think about the surface area of luck there, she could have easily said, I'm not going to that event. Mm-hmm. The second thing is she could have easily said, oh, there's no way, I'm way too embarrassed. I'm never going to talk to Howard. Why would I ever do that? Right? Yeah. And then the third thing was she grabbed the business card and she could have said, I'm not going to email them and ask for a meeting. There's no way he's going to say yes. But she did all three of those things. And so that's kind of the surface area of luck. You can say those are all lucky events, but she had to do something in order to put herself in all those three situations.
And is this a book that you wrote or is this an article?
Just an article, yeah.
Just an article. It sounds so great, though. It could be a book on its own.
Yeah, it's a great metaphor. I think it's really applicable to a lot of things.
Sure. Now that I've heard it, I feel like my entire career so far has been surface area of luck.
You can go back many layers.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, while you were talking, I was thinking about it. And the way I got introduced to the tech industry is my dad is in the industry, but you don't want to go to your dad's work. That's so embarrassing. So that wasn't something that worked out great for me, but I used to do a lot of henna art in high school. And at my dad's work Christmas party, he would always push me to go do henna art and volunteer or get paid sometimes. And I would just be so embarrassed in the beginning that, I'm going to my dad's work. But I would sit there, do henna art for 2 hours and then talk to everyone there. And eventually I made friends there, friends with other developers at the company. And then they were like, do you want to volunteer here for a summer? And this was still in grade 10. So I was like, sure, that seems cool. I didn't know what it was. So I volunteered as an office assistant the first year. Second year, I volunteered as a test automation person, not really an engineer, but I was helping out with the testing. And the third year, they were like, do you just want to work here? And I was like, okay, great. And then I got into UVic and I was looking for my very first co-op in first year. And it's usually really hard to get your very first co-op in first year or the summer of first year. And I got it just because I had that experience of working at Schneider Electric for 3 summers. And it was all just putting myself out there. Exactly like what you were talking about.
Right? I don't want you to stop. Continue on with this story, please.
Yeah, continue to snowball from there.
Right? Yeah, the snowball effect.
My first co-op was at Redbrick. Very great experience. And then I kind of stayed in touch with all the people and I would see them sometimes at career fair at UVic. And I knew after I graduated, I really want to work at Redbrick or a similar company. But at that time, I was just like, Redbrick is the goal. And kind of the opposite of what Marco said in the beginning, having high expectations. I was fully expecting myself to work there or I'll be very devastated. And then I did my next 3 co-ops kind of in different areas, kind of exploring different ways I could practice myself for engineering degree. And I didn't really like some of the work. I did like some of the work, kind of figured out what I wanted to do. So in my last year, I was like, okay, now's the time I start applying and Redbrick better be hiring because that's the goal. But I'd run out of kind of part-time job money. So I was looking for some part-time jobs. I was tutoring at that time. I was working around the campus and then I needed another job for a couple months in January. And I didn't even talk to Dana directly. One of my friends talked to her, and Dana told her there was this opportunity coming up if she wanted to take it, but she already had a job, so she passed it on to me because she knew I was looking for work. So I went and talked to Dana. I hadn't talked to Dana in a while. I did my capstone project with her, but after that, I didn't really stay in contact that much. But went to her, we had a meeting, and she told me she had 3 opportunities, but she really wanted me to pick the opportunity based on the work and not the company or the title. So she didn't tell me who was hiring for each of the opportunities.
Oh, wow.
Sneaky.
And she only told me she only told me what the project was going to be. And one of them was the carbon impact of the internet and web browsing. And I can't remember what the other 2 options were, just because I heard this one and I was like, I'm sold on this one. This is the one I want.
Yeah.
She was like, no, take some time, go back, think about it. We'll have another meeting. And meanwhile, she was getting the Inspire program started up, and she was looking for someone to make a website. So I was like, while I'm looking, I can make your website for you. And that'll be like a little bit of part-time work that I'm looking for. So I did that during the winter, and then I touched base with her again in December. And she told me, okay, you're in. It's with Marco and Tobin. You might have heard of them. I was like, oh my gosh, it's a Redbrick. So I had my first meeting with them in December, and I was very, very excited about the project. And I did some research work, and by the time April rolled around, I was working at Redbrick.
That's fascinating. And I
Incredible.
love how you got to try out all these different opportunities as well before going back to Redbrick. And it was almost as if your values and beliefs just aligned with the project and the company Redbrick, right?
For sure, yeah. It's pretty crazy. In my second and third year, I really wanted to nail down that I would enjoy the work that I was going to be doing. So I tried quite a few clubs at UVic. I was part of the OrcaSat project because I went through like a whole year phase where I was obsessed with NASA. I was like, I'm going to work at NASA. First
Sounds like
step,
me.
it's like first step, working at the local satellite project, and that was the OrcaSat project, which, if you don't know, is a Canadian Space Agency funded project at UVic where they're building a CubeSat. I think it might have actually wrapped up because I worked for them a few years ago. But I had such a great time working, and I had such a great time networking with all these cool engineers from NASA and CSA. But by the end of it, I really didn't like the actual work I was doing. It wasn't the kind of development I wanted to do. So I kind of said goodbye to that, tried out a few other things. And by my 5th year, I'd kind of figured out what I wanted to do. And that's when this opportunity came up, and I was like, this is exactly what I want to do.
That's amazing. Yeah, surface area luck, right?
Exactly.
That's so cool. You know,
Words to live by.
it's funny because like I'm relating this, of course, to like my own journey and experiences. And anytime that I've like, you know, had a step forward, it definitely came down to the same kind of scenario where like I took a leap and I reached out to someone when I wasn't expecting it to go anywhere, and it led me here. I got onto the Greater Victoria Coalition and Homelessness Project because I was in my first year of undergrad. I was looking for a personal mentor, someone who could just like tell me, hey, I want to be like a data scientist. What courses should I, spend my time on? Which ones should I avoid? That sort of thing. And I reached out to our community partner. Her name's Michelle, Dr. Michelle Ventura-Roscoe. And she gave me some great advice, and I thought nothing of it for months after that. And then I get in touch with her again. She puts me in touch with Dana from Inspire, and next thing I know, it's snowballed from here, where we're focusing on building apps for local charities, that sort of thing. And it's I've never at any point known what's going to come next, but I just like keep putting myself out there. Very much surface area luck sort of thing. We're trying to solve these like crazy problems in society that like how do you solve like homelessness or domestic violence from like a software perspective? In fact, I kind of want to bridge that back to what you guys do at Redbrick with the carbon impact and everything like that. How do you break down a complex problem, and how do you identify who you're really helping, your users, and what they need? Decide on the features and that whole design process. I know it probably sounds like a lot, but where do you even begin?
Mahum?
I'm trying to think very hard. From the technical side, there had been some work done in terms of the algorithms and formulas to calculate carbon impact of a single byte traveling across the internet. So we had some base foundation work to build off of, and it was really important to us for us to have work that is researched and it's built on proper research and it's approved and it can be showcased in a research paper or some form. So like it's it's legit work.
Mhm.
We're not just making up formulas. So that was a good starting off point. And then we're kind of iterating on the one algorithm we honed in on, and we're kind of, every iteration we do, we kind of improve it a little bit. And in terms of features,
Well, I would say that we're research based, and features is kind of, you have to just say these are the MVP. Here's the things that we think people will need. We're so early on, and we are yet to officially launch in terms of this into any partners, and kind of the way that the launch is going to look like is the research paper is getting published probably in the next month, or probably next 4 to 6 weeks. Followed by, we'll have our kind of public launch, followed by then kind of getting into the work of conversations with companies and starting to build out the roadmap of what that looks like. Right now, the product allows you to just, you can put it in a website and it spits out what would be guidance in terms of the impact based on the model that we've created. The next step will be implementing, having a company being able to put something on their website to be able to track and actually calculate more of that formula per individual that comes to the site. So then you can get your kind of actual amount of carbon that is created. So that's the next iteration. And then from there, where the feature sets go will basically come down to ideation, feedback, meetings, and what kind of the market wants and what it needs. There's we mentioned Sweep. We are setting up Sweep right now as a software tool at Redbrick. We anticipate there's quite a few of these type of measurement platforms as kind of perfect partners for us, because if you're already measuring things, adding in, like, Sweep can go and say, well, use digital. If you want to add, you can use digital scope, put it on your web assets, and we can bring in that data into Sweep as well, so you have a fuller picture when it comes to the digital side as well. And so that's, to us, we see as a pretty natural partnership. We have not formalized any of these, but that's business, and that's kind of the next step.
Incredible. We're just about out of time here, so I want to ask one more question to both of you. Parker, you had mentioned mentorship earlier.
I did.
And I know that Redbrick is really involved with the Inspire program, and you have a bunch of mentors that have actually been helping the apprentices. Can you speak about that a little bit? Which one of you? Let's go Mahum first.
Sure. So I'm also working in the role of a mentor for the Digital Scope team. So we have 4 Garage team members in that team. And then we have a few other people in very different roles. So we have Erica, who is a software developer. And then we have Nash, who is a editor?
Yep.
Editor. Yeah. So we have very different roles mentoring. I'm not sure. Are you a mentor as well, Marco?
For Climact.
For Climact. Yeah. So a lot of different fields of people mentoring these teams, which I think is great. Even for our team, like Digital Scope, it's really cool sometimes when we're just having a regular old meeting and we talk about something and we get some really great feedback from Marco or Tobin, and it comes from like years and years of experience, something that none of us have had so far. So it's been really, really useful.
Yeah, so I'm an advisor for Inspire, the program itself, and I was happy to take that seat on behalf of Redbrick, just because when it comes, and all the programs are incredibly important. For myself personally, I'm definitely, I lean and I'm more interested in the sustainability and climate aspect of projects, and it's just something kind of near and dear to my heart, and something that I spend a decent amount of time from. So to be able to advise on that side and help bring tech into Inspire and programs, and that was really interesting. And then there's the Climact team. I don't know what they say if it's the young team, but I think they're high school students that had the idea. I don't know if high school or middle school. I can't remember. I think it's a mixture of the two. I grew up in a town in northern BC. I used to do junior achievement, and not as a student, but as a mentor as well. And the idea that we never really had entrepreneurship programs or business programs where I grew up from. And so the idea to be able to take and help this young team that has this idea and it's evolved around climate was really, really interesting to me. So I was happy to help fund and to mentor that team. So
that's amazing. Yeah. I just want to say we really appreciate you guys' time today. We do have to wrap up a little bit, but it's been an incredible wealth of wisdom and experience from both of you. Yeah, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You're very welcome.
Right. I'm Parker DeBrune.
I'm your co-host, Jenna Melman.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. Until next time, stay inspired.